Okay, I think we're live. Hi, Dr. Anna. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, I'm excited to be here with you. Great to have this conversation, Nicole.
I know. So everyone, this is Period Talk with Nicole. This is actually episode number 1, and we're talking about sex with my friend, Dr. Anna Cabeca. She is an Emory University trained gynecologist and obstetrician, and she's a menopause and sexual health expert, an international speaker and educator. She created the top-selling products Julva, an anti-aging feminine cream for women, which we're going to be talking about on this episode. And then she also created MightyMaca, which is a superfood hormone balancing health drink. And she has a bunch of online programs for women to help them restore their feminine health. So she's here to answer your questions, and I can't wait to jump in.
I tell you, you're starting off your podcast series with a conversation about sex. Now that's open honesty and vulnerability all wrapped up in a beautiful, feminine, powerful statement.
Girl, I try.
No doubt.
I know, right? I would love for you to maybe just start and tell my viewers a little bit about you and what you do, because I feel like, I know your work really well, but I don't know that they know your work well. So it would be great for you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a traditionally trained obstetrician and gynecologist. I trained at Emory University in Atlanta, and I came to practice on a small area, coastal Georgia, Shrimping Village area. And one of my first clients, again, this population has a wide demographic, but one of my first clients was this beautiful 63-year-old woman, and she had come in to me saying, "Hey, Dr. Anna, I have been waiting for this appointment with you for months. I am a woman of the 60s. I've had ductal carcinoma in situ that was diagnosed by your alumni at Emory University, and they said I can't do hormones, and I'm drying up, shriveling up, and I don't want to have sex. And really, sex is so important to me with my husband, and I would rather die than live this way. So what do you want to, what can you do for me?" Whoa, and this was like 5'11", tall, slim, silver hair, just very dynamic woman, quite intimidating. I'm like, oh, well, let me look in my doctor's bag 1 second, I start looking.
Dig in there.
Right. And lo and behold, I'm like, I had nothing for her. Granted, I was straight out of my training, but it's really some of the best training in the world, but I had nothing to offer this woman. So I said, well, let me look at the research and come back in 2 weeks and I'll have a solution. And so that was in the 90s. So I dug into the research. What can I do for vaginal dryness in women who, their oncologist won't let them use estrogen? What do I need? What can she have safely, even though she's had ductal carcinoma in situ? It's not breast cancer, but it was enough at that time to say, okay, hey, no estrogen for these women. And they were suffering. She was suffering, and really millions of women like her. So that's where I started using vaginal and vulvar hormonal creams or tablets that would be inserted in the vagina or applied topically. So I started prescribing testosterone and DHEA and using those.
Sorry, it's New York.
I hear that. I see that. It's exciting.
I have no mute button.
Oh my gosh. No, it is real and it is live, and we will pray for them as they go by. I hope they're okay. And so so that's why I started prescribing androgens for women, especially in the cases where they've had any really vaginal symptoms, but especially in clients who were left to suffer because of a fear of using estrogen in women who have had a history of either ductal carcinoma in situ or breast cancer. And that's where it started. And so in the sexual health realm, trying to restore sexual health, restore the physical. And granted, there's a huge component to that, because something I recognized early on is that we can restore the physical, but unless, especially when it comes to sexual health, unless we restore the relationship, we're not going to get real healing or that twinkle back in our eye, that secret smile on our lips, and we really want to combine the two. So that started me on this journey to really bring that all together, healing physically and relationally.
I was going to say, you really had to jump in, and it was kind of sink or swim, because it sounds like there just wasn't anything really available, and nobody was doing this kind of work. So kudos to you for being a pioneer.
Thank
or
you.
a pioneeress.
Well, the research has been out there, which is so interesting. The research, now we're getting a lot more research on especially DHEA, the safety profiles of DHEA, using it in women, but there's still very limited research in testosterone use in women. We've got some great research out there, though, like by breast surgeon Dr. Rebecca Glazer and many other studies coming out, but it is not mainstream. And it does require good skills in prescribing it, because a little bit goes a long way. And plus we have to have faith in our compounding pharmacies, which I totally do. And I think that's so important for doctors and individuals to get a good relationship with a local compounding pharmacy. So you can really customize care for you in a very natural, holistic way.
I think that's so helpful for women to know. And so I wanted to sort of shift gears a little bit, because obviously I said to you that the audience that I speak to tends to be in their 20s and 30s, and they're complaining about a lot about what your 63-year-old patient was talking about back in the 90s. And it's the same thing, like low sex drive or low desire and vaginal dryness and painful sex. And so many women now have been on hormonal contraceptives for such long periods of time that, when I look at test results, or when their doctors look at test results, they're in menopausal or postmenopausal ranges, and they're like 25 or 30 years old. So, that's like the epidemic that I'm seeing. And I'm just so curious if you had any insight into or anything to share around that, because I think that a lot of women feel like they'd rather be gardening than having sex.
Or something, right?
Anything.
Shopping ranks really high in that one. But yeah, and this is true, and it's true for men too, right? We're seeing a lot more men with low androgen levels. Yeah. But women specifically, first of all, if you're getting blood work done, I know you know this, but for our listeners, hormone lab tests on birth control pills are not accurate. You really have to be off a cycle to do your hormones, and doing baseline labs cycle day 3, and then peak labs at for progesterone at cycle day 21. So that does matter. It matters when they take it. So whenever I have a younger patient who has these low levels, on a regular cycle, I want to look a couple times. I don't want to look just once. I want to look a couple times, over a month or a couple months to really get the diagnosis. But the first time I see it, we're going to start detoxing, right? Because our hormones are metabolized through our liver, and there are so many hormone disruptors. Now, this is really poignant. And the research shows that in umbilical cord blood, there's close to 300 chemicals in umbilical cord blood. And so exactly, it's tragic. It's tragic. And so our babies are being exposed to hormone disruptors. And we have to go, we have to really be advocates and say, okay, the experiment has to stop right now. Yes. I have a t-shirt for my daughter who's 9, and it's like, I am not an experiment. No Monsanto.
And it's going horribly wrong. I mean, how we don't see that, or we're not acting on it, is just insane.
It's not convenient, right? There are many levels. It's not convenient, and the exposure is ubiquitous right now for us and for our children. Like, we can go to any school cafeteria and have lunch with a 3rd grader, which I do. And it is not food. I promise you, it is not food. Half the time it's not food. And so but it's not convenient to make your food each day and keep it fresh, and that it's great for them when they get time for their lunch break, and not warm, not too cold, so all those things come into play. It's not easy, but again, it's worth it. The same thing I had a beautiful conversation with another hormone specialist today, and she's using egg yolk as shampoo. And I'm like, what? And that's something that she had to do when she was growing up in Poland. Her name is Magdalena, and she said that they didn't have the luxury of, shampoo, but everyone wanted to look beautiful. Her mom would just use egg yolks to shampoo her hair. So she's trying to completely detoxify all disruptors from her body to the nth degree, right? But I'm like, okay, that's a stretch, right, Nicole? I'm telling you,
a little bit of a stretch. I know. I mean, I'm maxing out at the natural shampoo at this point because even that isn't fabulous. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, but so those things, the chemical, but it's true, the chemicals we're using, the cosmetics we're using on our face, we're metabolizing them through our lymph, affecting our thyroid gland. All of those are having effects. So hormone disruptors are really big. Birth control pills are huge, are heavy dose hormones that your liver has to metabolize. I mean, we could do a little bit of things, but it's the abundance, of the chemicals, the hormones, disruptors, the pesticides, herbicides, et cetera, that we're exposed to, unintentionally, right? The treatment of the upholstery we're sitting on.
Oh, I know.
The clothes, and especially for women, because you talked about women age 20s and 30s that are having these issues. And I was so happy to hop on this call with you, because bravo to start talking about this now, because there are women, in our 50s, 60s, and we're not talking about it. We're ashamed. It's become something that we secretively are ashamed to talk about, or we've just accepted it as a natural part of aging, such as incontinence, vaginal dryness, not having sex anymore with our husband. And really, I have women in their 80s that are still in intimate relationship with their partner. And that is beautiful. It takes different shapes and different forms, but don't cut that out. Right. And I think starting the conversation, being willing to talk about it now, exactly that. Incontinence, leaking of urine when you cough, sneeze, do yoga. I mean, that is happening at any age.
I know it is, right? It's happening to younger women as so much more now. It seems like I hear about it all the time now, but I don't think I ever heard about it before.
No, it's good. It's good that you're open, you're open to listening. Number one, you're a listener, so people are going to talk to you more, but having that conversation is key as well. Yeah. And I think that we have to think about the chemicals in tampons and pads and detergents and our clothing, underwear, night clothes, etc. So, and how we're more sedentary. So our musculature is not getting as much natural exercise as it should be, right? Compared to more pedestrian societies where you walk everywhere versus sit, drive.
I know, sit.
Off our legs, I know. Like we should.
I know. I'm like, I'm going to uncross my legs now.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say that actually too, because so we talked about the hormonal birth control and of course all of the endocrine disrupting chemicals, which is, again, epidemic. The other thing I wanted to mention too was stress, because younger and younger women and men too, of course, but this is kind of for the ladies, are experiencing unprecedented amounts of stress. And it's literally putting such a strain in our endocrine system long before it's even really developed to the point where it can handle this. I mean, not that anyone can really handle stress in the modern world these days, but that's another thing too. I would love to hear your take on that, because I know that puts a huge damper on our sex hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have to look at even stress in utero, right? And the connection. Now I'm a mom. I've had 5 children, and it was my badge of honor when my Amanda was born, and I was a resident at Emory University, an obstetrician gynecologist. I was only out for less than 3 weeks. I was back at work at 3 weeks. My daughter was in full-time care from 3 weeks. And the studies show that, that you don't develop the level of attachment and oxytocin, receptor connectivity if you don't have that really good bonding time in early pregnancy, in early childhood. And so moms, we don't need more guilt than we already have. But for me as an OBGYN resident, that's my field. Mm-hmm. It was just driven into me like, I need to get right back to work. They're going to be fine. I'll pump at work, but she'll be fine. The reality is some countries have it right. In the Netherlands, for decades, they have people come help the mom at home so she can rest, nurture, be totally focused on the baby, because that makes a healthier generation, a healthier population. So it's a given. We have to kind of create some really healthy boundaries and support of that nourishing culture, like to allow definitely time. And something I told my patients for many, many years, I'm like, you'll never regret the time you stay at home with your children after they're born. You'll never regret that. Now, my 9-year-old, I retired my clinical practice to raise my 9-year-old. So finally, I have taken my own advice.
It takes some time.
It took me some time, but it's that, it's like give and take. It's like, oh, I didn't think that I really had an option.
Right.
And I really did. Truth
But I think women don't think that, though. Especially younger women who are under undue amounts of stress. I think they feel that they don't have options. And so what do? How do they juggle all of this?
Well, and then first it's to recognize the stress is affecting us in many levels from early on, maternal stress, working, stress environments, etc. Perceived stress is as bad as real stress, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and perceived stress rates as high on our physiology as actual stress. But even higher is the perceived control of the stress. So to counteract that, having perceived control of that stress, or like looking at it as good, as a matter of fact, as a way of life, as, let's find the joy in it, let's find the good in it, let's be grateful, bring in gratitude, all of that will lower the cortisol, the stress hormone cortisol. And so that, again, will help tremendously. What I want listeners to know is that, we are going to be exposed with stress, but putting those limits on it, I would tell my girls all the time, protect your mind, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, who you're talking to, use discernment, protect your mind. And that's your first really good control against some of these stressors that we have. And then recognize the things that increase oxytocin, because when cortisol goes up, oxytocin goes down. Right. And that oxytocin is that hormone of connection and love. So when you're stressed, you're burnt out, you don't want to have sex, you don't want to be with that individual, you don't want to do the things that you love doing. So it goes beyond your relationship, it goes to your activities, your lifestyle, your world starts to get really small and you become disconnected. Right. And that's a result of this hormonal battle, this hormone disconnection.
Makes complete sense. Mm-hmm. I know, right? Who wants to have sex when they're working 18-hour days?
Well, and it's that physiology, oxytocin's low, so you don't even feel connected. Right. So then you have to do the things that are going to increase your oxytocin. So it's community. It's right. Have sex even if you don't want to, right? Sometimes, like, hey, hubby, I recognize your needs, my needs, and what women will tell me all the time, they'll say, I never want to initiate sex, but once we get started, I'm good. And younger women particularly are that way. And that is perfectly normal. Mm-hmm. That is perfectly normal. So recognizing that takes the burden off. Mm-hmm. But then also kind of creating, like as women, we want to create a mood. We want to create an ambiance. We want to feel that, love connection back at us, that desire that we're desired back at us. So we really have to speak that, because otherwise I've yet to meet the male mind reader.
I think it's hard for women to verbalize that, what they desire. I think it's really challenging for a lot of women, because I think we're not really taught how to do that, and it can feel really uncomfortable. And I was just watching this TED Talk yesterday by Peggy Orenstein, and she was talking about just that, about how women we're sort of set up in our culture to not ask for what we want, not to enjoy sex, especially younger women who are sort of experimenting, and and there's shame and there's potential embarrassment about what their lady parts look like. I mean, it's just incredible how stark the differences are between men and women when it comes to that. Like, men don't talk about their sexual experiences in the way that younger women do, in that they, younger women, the words they use are shame and embarrassment and discomfort and pain, and men don't say those words at all. And so I think that, we have to almost reverse engineer our way into really enjoying sex and being intimate with somebody.
Yeah. And I think that also stems with knowing our body. And first of all, knowing our body and loving our body as we are.
Right.
One of my big pet peeves are the, vulvar surgeries and lasers and vulvoplasties that are happening. There's over 100% increase in these procedures in the last decade.
That's what she was talking about in this video. Yeah. She said that the highest growth of these procedures is amongst teenagers. I nearly died. It's nuts.
It is. It is damaging. And I think that the biggest thing is that we need to recognize is that we've got to, first of all, recognize what's normal for us, right? Recognize, I'd have on my blog, like, where is my vulva? What does our vulva look like? But I give an example of the orchid. If you look at the orchid plant, it really does look like the vulva. You've got a clitoral hood, the inner labia minora, the labia majora. You've got the perineal body. I mean, and orchids are beautiful. The example is that really all shapes and sizes of orchids are beautiful. Mm-hmm. Right? And our vulva is the same. Just as our face is uniquely different, our vulva is uniquely different. And that is okay. The key thing that the tissue is healthy and keeping it healthy no matter what our age is. That means limiting exposure. Also limiting our exposure to other people's microbiome, right? So not being intimate with anyone that we're not committing to. I really feel strongly about that. And that is allowing, if you're not able to communicate well with a person, and we are designed this way as women, if you're not able to communicate comfortably, be comfortable in communicating and talking about anything, then you're not going to have that intimate connection where women will enjoy it, relax, and really be, loving it then and after the fact, right? Because it's after the fact where we feel the shame, where we feel like, the pain, the discomfort, like we thought this was all it, but it's not. Right. What's going on there? And first is really getting to know our own anatomy, having enough foreplay so that we have natural lubrication, or not being hesitant. Like, vaginal lubrication does not signify arousal. Right. And so, understanding that part, but also allowing ourselves the time and space to really have that open, honest, trusting, communicative relationship that leads to increased pleasure, desire, and better end result in performance, etc. We want that.
Absolutely. I'm so curious about what you just said about vaginal lubrication doesn't indicate arousal. Talk more about that, and then we could talk more about Julva for your vulva.
Yes, joyful vulva. Yeah, that's how the name came about. But anyway, so the level of arousal is not in direct relationship to the level of vaginal lubrication we have. We have to give our body time to respond. I mean, for me, every woman is different. Like, whatever we should do, we should not compare to stories, and definitely don't compare to media, especially, porn or sexual demonstrations, because that's what that is. I mean, that would be like comparing real life to a Schwarzenegger movie, right? It's just not real. Okay. And so first understand that. So we're going to have different levels of moisture. We're going to have different levels of orgasm and being comfortable with our body. I mean, I have many clients that are just really stuck and unable to orgasm. And I think this, and there's many layers, but I think as we get more comfortable with our body, as we start to recognize our pleasure centers, as we're open in communication in a trusting relationship, right? We have to have trust so we can put our, archaic brain to rest, right? Calm down, and allow that, the whole neurologic connection that is tied into our, the sexual and sensual component of intimacy to really evolve and be relaxed, rested, and aroused as well. But so that is an important thing to understand. And so for many women too, like for example, if there's if the pH of the vagina is off, if we don't have healthy probiotic or bacterial levels in the vagina, if the pH is off balance, that's all going to affect moisture. That's all going to affect condom uses, etc. All of that is going to affect moisture to the vaginal walls. And and the body's natural gland production. So we want to really be aware of that. So nutrition, exercise, healthy blood supply, toxins, a good healthy microbiome, all of that, those are important factors that will also address lubrication as well as stress, back to stress, and fear, concern, self-doubt, insecurities. Like if that's coming up, don't go there, wait, right? That's really important. I think when our teens, our youngsters are often pressured prematurely into intimate relationship that they're not ready for. And heck no, don't go there. Let's, create a really healthy conversation over it and give space and time. And that's also women, I'm telling you, women in our 40s who have found themselves divorced and are now seeking new relationships. Same thing applies. Thing applies.
I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know we could talk so much about all of this stuff all night long, I think, but I wanted to also have a conversation about Julva, which is your creation. Maybe you can share a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So, back to when I started trying to help women with sexual dysfunction issues, the same with vaginal dryness, and also dealing with women with incontinence and low sexual desire, low libido, and I started to use androgen therapy. So testosterone, DHEA, using even progesterone around the vulva area, and had great results. Well, when I retired my clinical practice, I'm taking care of my daughter, and I've learned a lot of this, Nicole, through my own post-traumatic stress disorder that I've dealt with over the last decade. But so I really get this cortisol oxytocin connection on many levels. So that was part of it. But I decided when I retired my practice, I'd been prescribing, I had tens of thousands of clients, and plus I taught and I lectured. So but I found that women were like, I can't get my doctor to prescribe me this. And many physicians just aren't comfortable prescribing vaginal hormones other than vaginal estrogen. Well, vaginal estrogen only works on the mucosal layer. It doesn't work on the muscular layer, right? And the deeper connective tissue like androgens do. So I wanted to create something that would be available for women, very safe, like a cosmetic that will, be applied to the vulva, clitoris, all the way down to the rectum. You just keep that tissue healthy and strong, restore a natural pH balance and moisture. And, just like we would use an anti-aging cream around our face, use it down there. And so I incorporated many ingredients, including plant stem cells from the Alpine Rose, which is a pretty cool plant because it blossoms in the snow in the Alps. How cool. So researchers studied it to see what made it so awesome, resilient, right? I want to be that rose.
Yeah, in the snow.
All my white hair. And totally, right? In that analogy, in the orchid, let's say.
Right.
And then I added emu oil, coconut oil, some shea butter, some really good emollients that are just so nourishing, and DHEA, an adrenal hormone also produced by the ovaries in women, testes in men, but it's one of those hormones. It's along the category of androgens that helps muscle tissues. It helps with many things when certainly the research has been applied vaginally, but applied topically. We're working on it, using it as a natural anti-aging cream, and it helps your body restore its own moisture. And that's key. That is really key. So that means things are working better, and women will experience better. I mean, I've heard so many analogies, or anecdotes. People have had better orgasm. Husbands want to buy by the gallon. Incontinence, leaking. We have I did another Facebook Live with beautiful Trina Felber from Primal Life Organics. She has the dental.
I love her tooth powder. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, tooth powder. It's amazing. And
it's so good.
So good. I highly recommend it. And so she was talking about jumping on the trampoline, and she would, have to wear a panty liner. I mean, just one of those things. And then she recognized after using Julva for a little bit that she didn't need that anymore. It's like liberation. But awesome. It's so true. Left to our own, again, we're exposed to a lot more. Our lifestyles are different. I have a little bit of extra help. So that's what Julva is.
I mean, I love it. I've used it too. I've been using it since like October maybe. And same deal. It has totally changed my sex life. And so I'm like 37. So it's really interesting because I was on the pill for a really long time and my hormones were probably menopausal by the time I got off of the pill because I had so many problems. And it took me years to rebuild. But now as I'm getting closer to 40, I feel like things are changing a little bit. So I was like, all right, let me just give this a try because my friend Alex said that it was miraculous, of course. And so here I am. And that's why I wanted to interview you because I feel like this is such an incredible product and it works so well, obviously not only for your demographic of ladies, but the women who I have been serving for so long who are in their 20s and 30s and are literally crying to me because after 6 months of being on the pill, they have no desire to have sex anymore.
Right. And that is clearly because testosterone, androgen levels drop, and then we don't address it in medicine. We don't address it. So, and I think it's going to create problems. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So the DHEA, I will wrap up in a second, but I just wanted to ask a quick question. So the DHEA, it's basically this is a local product, right? So this is not going to circulate throughout your bloodstream or cause any kind of other issues with, like too much DHEA in the body or something like that.
Very, very unlikely. It is topical. It's meant to apply to the vulvar area externally. It's not a problem if if you use it prior to intercourse or anything. It's designed to be very safe. And because it is topical, it is very little amount would be systemically absorbed. It really is intended as a local treatment. Now you may get some systemic absorption because the vulva is very vascular. Mm-hmm. And, but we have not seen any jumps in blood work at all. So I think that's something to just be very cognizant of and also to be aware, like if we're looking at DHEA levels in the blood, we're looking at DHEAS and we want levels for women to be 200 to 300. But typically I see those levels very low. So a little bit of adding DHEA can go a long way and just keeping that extra reserve on, helping with, the other factors. I mean, DHEA, we use it for a wide variety of things to help with stress, to help with resetting our circadian rhythms, to help with, again, strength, energy, libido, sex drive, things like that. So there are many reasons to use it.
Amazing. Julva for your vulva.
Vulva, joyful vulva.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Anna. I'm really happy you were on with me tonight, and I can't wait to share more about Julva with all of my ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It was so great to have you on. And everyone, I put a link right above the title, actually, for Dr. Anna's Julva cream, and you can check it out by clicking on that link. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks, Dr. Anna.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.